Welcome back to a Doctor's Perspective podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Justin Trosclair. We interview doctors, authors, marketers. We have solo episodes, podcast review episodes. I want to thank you for tuning in. Let's start learning and go hashtag behind the curtain. So great for you to join me today. We're going to have a masterclass on productivity because some people have been pretty amazed about the things that I've done. They wonder how do I have time to write 9 books and produce blog articles and all that, plus be a dad and a husband. So I thought, let me put this together. It's 45 minutes. There's going to be a worksheet that you can download at adoctorsperspective.net for this show notes page. And if you know anything about what I've been doing, I use AI for a whole bunch of things. A lot of the blog articles, image creation, video creation. And I finally bit the bullet and did an AI voice clone. And it sounds pretty much like me. Obviously, you're hearing the intro. When you hear the class, you can be like, yeah, okay, there's definitely a difference. However, this is going to allow me to produce more episodes geared towards patient education, SEO, and those types of things. And if I decide to do more interviews, and we can do that as well. So if you have any opinions, let me know. I'm always looking to improve. But without further ado, let's jump in.
The Solo Doctor Operating System: How to Finish Notes, Keep Marketing Moving, and Be Present at Home. A practical framework for the doctor who provides patient care, leads a small team, and still wants to have a life outside the clinic. If you visit adoctorsperspective.net, you will find the worksheets that complement what we will go over today. Before we dive in, I want you to know exactly what you are going to walk away with today. By the end of this masterclass, you are going to have a simple operating system for your clinic. You are going to have a better framework for finishing notes consistently. You are going to have a repeatable marketing rhythm that does not depend on whether you feel inspired that day. A clearer way to use a small team well, even if that's one person. And you're going to have a weekly planning rhythm that helps you get ahead instead of always feeling like you're recovering. But maybe most importantly, you're going to have a way to leave work at work so that when you get home, you are actually home. Because that matters more than most people admit. This is not about becoming more productive just for the sake of productivity. This is not about squeezing every last ounce out of your day until there is nothing left of you by dinner. This is about building a clinic that supports your life instead of quietly consuming it. It is about building enough order into your workday that your mind is no longer dragged around by everything unfinished. It is about learning how to carry real responsibility without letting that responsibility spill into every room of your life. Here is one of the central ideas of this entire class. Presence is built before you leave the clinic. It is built in the systems you keep and the small decisions that create order now instead of chaos later. That is what today is about. The 4 pillars. Everything we cover today fits into 4 simple ideas, not 40, just 4. Clarity means knowing what matters and knowing what you are trying to avoid. Container means giving every task, project, and idea a place to live so it stops living in your head. Calendar means putting important work on the schedule before urgency steals the day from you. Control means using simple decision filters so you stay in charge even when the day gets chaotic. If you understand those 4 ideas, everything else in this class gets lighter. Not easy, but lighter. Because when things are unclear, everything feels heavier than it is. And when there's no structure, even simple tasks start to feel overwhelming. If you are a solo doctor, you are not just the doctor. You are the office manager, the marketer, the trainer, the troubleshooter, and the person everyone looks to when the day starts to wobble. Then you drive home, and now you are supposed to switch roles again. Now you are a spouse, a parent, a friend, a son or daughter, and a person who might want to rest, exercise, read something besides chart notes, or have one normal conversation that has nothing to do with staffing, scheduling, or why the printer stopped working again. But many nights, the clinic comes home with you. Not physically, mentally. And that is where so many clinic owners get stuck. Not because they do not care, or because they are weak. Not because they need another motivational quote. They are trying to carry a complex business without a simple operating system. When there is no system, your mind becomes the backup plan. It starts holding unfinished notes, tomorrow's schedule, the patient you forgot to call back, the report that never got sent, the video you keep meaning to record, the staff conversation you need to have, and the supply order you still have not placed. Every unfinished item becomes another open tab running in the background of your mind. Psychologists have a name for this. Unfinished tasks stay mentally active until they are completed or given a trusted place to live. That is why you can be sitting at dinner and suddenly remember a chart you forgot to finish. Not because it is the most important thing in your life, but because your brain does not yet trust that it has been handled. Your brain was built to solve problems. It was not built to become your filing cabinet. So today I am not going to give you a pile of random productivity tips. I am going to give you one practical operating system. One that works whether you see 15 patients a day or 50. One that respects reality. Motivation comes and goes. Energy rises and falls. Life does not always cooperate. That is exactly why you need structure. The goal is not to cram more work into your life. The goal is to make important work easier to finish with less friction, less stress, and less mental drag. So when you leave the clinic, you actually leave the clinic. Because if we get this right, 3 things improve at the same time. Your notes get done, your marketing keeps moving, and your family gets the best version of you, not simply the version that is left over. Meet Dr. Alex. To make this practical, I want you to meet someone you will hear about throughout this class. We will call him Dr. Alex. Dr. Alex owns a solo clinic. He has 1 front desk team member, no associate doctor, office manager, marketing department, nor operations director. He is good with patients. Patients trust him. The care is not the problem. The problem is everything surrounding the care. His notes rarely get finished during business hours. Marketing happens mainly when the schedule gets slow enough to create anxiety. His team member is capable, but because there is no clear operating system, dozens of small decisions keep flowing back to him. And this is where people often misread their own situation. They think the answer is to try harder. Usually, that is not true. The real problem is that too many decisions are being made late, vaguely, or repeatedly. Too many things depend on memory. Too many important tasks are waiting for the right mood or the magical moment when the clinic finally slows down. And that moment rarely comes. Then he gets home. His laptop stays at the clinic, but his brain does not. His child asks him to play. His spouse asks how his day went. He is sitting on the couch, but mentally he is still finishing charts, replaying tomorrow's schedule, carrying a staff conversation, and trying to remember what fell through the cracks today. Nothing catastrophic happened, but the clinic never really closed. And after enough evenings like that, you stop feeling tired because you worked hard. You start feeling tired because work never truly ends. That is the real problem we are solving. Not simply time pressure, not just task overload, mental carryover. The kind that makes you physically present and mentally absent. So if we had to define success for Dr. Alex in one sentence, it would be this. Notes are done. Marketing is moving, and evenings belong to family. That is the destination. The real problem is not time. This is where many solo doctors accidentally diagnose the wrong problem. They say, I just need more hours, or I need better time management. I need to become more disciplined. But in my experience, that usually is not the deepest issue. The real issue is structural. Patient care is fixed time work. It already has a place on the calendar. Patients are scheduled. Rooms are booked. Appointments happen when they happen. But notes, marketing, planning, team development, follow-up, and system improvement often get treated like flexible time work. And later has a way of lying to you. Later becomes tonight, then Saturday morning. Later becomes you seem distracted during date night with your spouse. When things slow down just doesn't play out as you expected. Important work without a protected place does not disappear. It spills over. It spills into the evening and the weekend. And it floods into your time with your children or extracurricular activities. And eventually it spills into your peace. So if there is one sentence I hope you remember, it is this. The problem is not that you have important work. The problem is that important work without a protected place eventually takes over your life. That is why this class matters. We are not trying to make you busier. We are trying to make the right work visible, give it a home, protect it, and help you finish it while you're still at work. Because that is what makes presence possible everywhere else. Part 1. Clarity. Start with what you do not want. Now that we have identified the real problem, we can start building the solution. But before we ever touch your calendar, organize a single task, or create one system, we have to answer a bigger question. What kind of clinic are you actually trying to build? Because if you do not decide that intentionally, your schedule will decide for you. And schedules left alone do not drift toward peace. They drift toward urgency. The loudest problem wins. The ringing phone and interruptions win. And meanwhile, the work that would actually improve your life quietly gets pushed to tomorrow. That is why the first pillar is clarity. Not because clarity sounds inspiring, but because clarity is practical. If you are not clear about what matters most, you will spend your best energy reacting to whatever feels urgent in the moment. And that is how good doctors slowly build clinics they secretly resent. Not all at once, but through 1,000 small unexamined decisions. The power of an anti-vision. One of the most useful exercises I know is something called an anti-vision. Do not let the name fool you. This is not negative thinking. It is not complaining. It is a decision-making tool. Most people spend time thinking about what they want. Very few spend time getting honest about what they are determined to avoid. And sometimes that is even more powerful. Because once you clearly see what you do not want, you become much better at recognizing the small choices that quietly lead you there. Let's go back to Dr. Alex. If I asked him what he does not want his clinic to look like 3 years from now, he might say, I do not want to still be finishing notes after dinner. I don't want marketing to happen only when the schedule gets slow. I do not want my front desk team member asking me every tiny question because I never built systems. I don't want weekends becoming catch-up days. And most importantly, I do not want my family getting whatever energy I have left after the clinic takes everything else. Notice something? None of those are financial goals first. They are quality of life goals, peace goals, keeping life and clinic balance goals, because most doctors did not open a practice just to create another job they could never leave. They wanted meaningful work and to help people, to have freedom, and to build something good. But if you are not careful, service turns into survival. Responsibility turns into reactivity, and the clinic you built to serve your life starts consuming it. Now flip it. Once you have written your anti-vision, the next step is simple. Flip each statement. Instead of saying, I do not want to always be behind on notes, write, my notes are completed the same day, or they are already scheduled into a protected block. Instead of, marketing only happens when I am worried, write, marketing happens every week because it is part of my operating system. Flip. My team interrupts me constantly, right? My team protects my focus because we have clear expectations and clear systems. Flip. The clinic follows me home, right? When I walk through my front door, I am mentally available. That is your vision, not a slogan on the wall. A practical picture of what a good week actually looks like. Not fantasy, hustle, nor perfection. A good week lived on purpose, often enough to build a good life. If you do not define success clearly, you cannot filter decisions clearly. You will say yes to things that cost too much. You will tolerate or not even notice patterns that should have been corrected. You will keep confusing movement and busy work with progress. Clarity fixes that. Make this personal pause for a moment and answer this. What do you never want your clinic, your energy, or your family life to look like 1 year from now? Write down 3 statements. Then underneath each one, write the opposite. What does success actually look like? What would a more ordered clinic look like? What would a more present version of you look like? Do not just agree with the exercise, write. Because once your vision becomes clear, decision-making gets easier. Every opportunity, distraction, and request can be filtered through one simple question. Does this move me closer to the clinic I am trying to build, or closer to the clinic I am trying to escape? That is what clarity does. It does not eliminate work. It eliminates noise. And once the noise gets quieter, the next step becomes much easier. Now we need somewhere for all that work to live. Part 2. The container. Stop storing your clinic in your head. One of the biggest mistakes solo doctors make has nothing to do with effort. It has to do with where they are storing work. Most clinics do not just have too much to do. They have too many places where work is hiding. Some tasks live in the EHR, some live in email, or text messages, or sticky notes. Some are reminders from your front desk team member while you are in the middle of patient care, and some are half-finished thoughts you promised yourself you would remember later. That is the problem. Your clinic has become mentally expensive. You are treating a patient and your brain says, do not forget to call that lawyer back. Then, you still need to record that video, order those supplies. Remember to talk to the team about the bottleneck in patient flow tomorrow. Your brain is not failing, it is trying to protect you from forgetting. But every one of those open loops consumes attention, not time. Attention. And attention is one of the most valuable resources you have. Give everything a home. The solution is surprisingly simple. Everything needs a place to live, not in your head, in a trusted system. Because your brain is a great place to make decisions. It is a terrible place to store inventory. One framework I like uses 4 buckets: projects, areas, resources, archive. That is it. A project has a finish line. Reduce the note backlog. Pre-schedule the next 2 weeks of social media posts. Create a reactivation workflow. Train the team on a new checkout process. Those are projects. An area does not really end. Patient care is an area. Documentation is an area. Marketing is an area. Staff leadership, finances, health, and family are areas. A resource is something you use repeatedly. Video ideas, patient education topics, new patient letter templates to their medical doctors, referral letters, training notes, and finally, an archive. An archive is for things that are finished, but still worth keeping. Simple enough to use, strong enough to reduce chaos. The most common mistake here is where many people get confused. They treat an area like it is a project, and that creates constant frustration. Marketing is not something you finish. Marketing is something you maintain. Documentation is not something you complete forever. It is an ongoing responsibility. Leadership is not one conversation. Systems are not one checklist. Family health is not one weekend off. These are areas, but reducing a note backlog is a project. Creating a workflow is a project. Building a training document is a project. Projects improve areas. They do not replace them. That distinction sounds small, but it changes how you organize your whole clinic. Because if you keep treating ongoing responsibilities like one-time fixes, you will always feel behind. You will keep expecting closure, where what you really need is intentionality and safeguarding. Back to Dr. Alex. Dr. Alex's current projects might be: get every note completed the same day, build one protected weekly marketing block, create a simple reactivation process. His areas remain the same: patient care, documentation, marketing, staff leadership, finances, family. His resources include social media ideas, patient education topics, referral scripts, training notes, checklist templates. Nothing disappeared, it simply became visible. And once work becomes visible, it becomes manageable. And once it becomes manageable, it can actually improve. That is the real purpose of a container, not organization for its own sake, relief. Because once your clinic stops living inside your head, your brain can get back to doing what it does best: making decisions, solving problems, and being present. And now that everything has a place, we can decide when it gets done. Part 3, the calendar. Give important work a home. This is where everything starts coming together. If clarity tells us what matters, and the container tells us where things belong, the calendar answers the next question: when is this actually going to happen? Doctors work incredibly hard all day and still feel behind when they leave. Why? Because patient care already owns a place on the calendar. Everything else is expected to somehow fit into whatever time is left, but there usually is no time left. That is why one of the biggest ideas in this class is so simple: if it matters, it deserves a place before the week begins. Otherwise, urgency will steal that space every time. 3 types of work. Think about your week in 3 categories: production, maintenance, growth. Production is patient care. It is what the clinic exists to deliver. Maintenance keeps today's clinic healthy. Notes, follow-up, admin, billing, daily operations. And third, growth builds tomorrow's clinic. Marketing, referral relationships, staff training, systems, planning. You can think of it another way: production pays today's bills, maintenance keeps today's clinic functioning, growth creates next year's clinic. Most doctors naturally protect production. Many barely protect maintenance. Almost nobody consistently protects growth. Then they wonder why they always feel like they are running instead of leading. That is where protected blocks come in. Not because you need more hours, because important work needs an appointment. If it never gets scheduled, it is not a priority. It is a wish. Make it real. Take out your calendar. Find one daily notes block. This could be a mid-morning 20-minute planned block for responding to emails. You might have a 2-hour lunch, but you might spend 60 minutes catching up with notes. Find one weekly marketing block. As an example, if you're off on Tuesday mornings, schedule a 2-hour block for marketing. I'm not saying tennis and the gym are not important, but you might find that 2-hour block better spent for the future growth of your clinic. Find one weekly review. Actually schedule them now. Then ask yourself, which one of those blocks would create the biggest improvement in your life if you defended it for the next month? That is the block to start taking seriously. Part 4. Control what to do when the day blows up. So far, we have built 3 things. We created clarity about what matters. We gave everything a place to live, and we put important work on the calendar. Now comes the reality check. Your clinic will not always cooperate. A staff member calls in sick. A patient needs 30 extra minutes. Insurance rejects something unexpectedly. The schedule develops holes. The internet goes down. Life happens. That is why a calendar alone is not enough. You also need a way to make good decisions when your plan gets interrupted. Your calendar tells you what your ideal day looks like. Your decision filter tells you how to protect that day when reality shows up. 2 of the simplest decision filters I know are the Eisenhower Matrix and Eat the Frog. One helps you decide what deserves your attention. The other helps you decide what deserves your best energy. Those are not the same thing. Decision Filter 1. The Eisenhower Matrix asks 2 questions. How important is this, and how urgent is it? Everything that lands on your desk fits into one of 4 categories. 1. Important and urgent. Today's real fires. Patient care. A genuine patient complaint. An emergency scheduling breakdown. A staff issue that prevents the clinic from functioning. 2. Important but not urgent. This is where your future lives. Marketing, training, systems, referral relationships, better patient education, documentation improvements. These rarely scream, which is exactly why they often get ignored. 3. Urgent but not important. Whenever possible, these should be delegated. Appointment confirmations, routine callbacks, supply orders, collecting paperwork, preparing lists. They matter, but they do not always require the doctor. 4. Not urgent and not important. This is where time quietly disappears. Aimless scrolling, endless tweaking, busy work that feels productive, but does not actually move the clinic forward. Sometimes procrastination does not look like doing nothing. Sometimes it looks like doing comfortable work instead of meaningful work. A real morning with Dr. Alex. It is Wednesday morning. A patient needs extra time. The front desk asks about tomorrow's schedule. 3 notes are unfinished. A lead still has not been called back. The video you planned never got recorded. A vendor email just appeared. Without a filter, everything feels equally important, but it is not. Patient care may be important and urgent. Tomorrow's schedule might wait until lunch. The missed lead is important, but not important right this second. The video is important, but it already has a home in your marketing block. The vendor email may be tomorrow's problem. Nothing disappeared. You simply stopped giving every task the same emotional weight. That is one of the biggest mindset shifts in the whole class. Because what exhausts clinic owners is not only the number of responsibilities, it is treating every responsibility like an emergency. A good operating system does not eliminate work, it eliminates unnecessary urgency. The second decision filter, eat the frog. Once you know what matters, there is still one more question. Where should I start? That is where eat the frog comes in. Your frog is the task you have been avoiding. Not because it is impossible, but because it is uncomfortable. Maybe it is catching up on notes, or calling patients who disappeared out of the blue. Maybe it's figuring out how AI can create your next blog and patient education video. Maybe you finally let the negative attitude team member go. Whatever it is, you probably thought about it before you checked your email this morning. That is usually the frog. And your frog is rarely the longest task. It is the task creating the most mental resistance. The longer you avoid an important task, the more energy it quietly consumes. That is why finishing one meaningful task often feels better than completing 10 easy ones. You did not just finish work, you removed drag. Do the frog while your brain is fresh. A simple rule has helped me tremendously. Do your frog during your highest energy part of the day. For most people, that is earlier rather than later. Because every decision chips away at mental energy. By mid-afternoon, you are often not less intelligent. You are simply tired of deciding, so let your best brain solve your hardest problem. For Dr. Alex, Monday's frog might be finishing every open note before lunch, sending follow-up texts for all the new patients, recording one educational video, calling missed leads, or clarifying interruption rules with the team. None of those tasks are glamorous, but each one creates movement. Each one lowers friction. Each one reduces mental drag. That is what a good operating system does. It does not make your clinic perfect. It makes your clinic easier to run. Part 5, the weekly review, the habit that keeps the system alive. Now we come to what I believe is the glue holding this entire system together. Because almost any productivity system works for 3 days, maybe even 2 weeks. When motivation is high, almost everyone follows the plan. The real question is not, can this system work? The real question is, will I still be using it 3 months from now? That is where the weekly review comes in. 1. Step out of the clinic. Think of the weekly review like climbing into a helicopter. During the week, you are on the ground. One patient, one question, one problem, one fire after another. But once each week, you rise above the clinic. You stop reacting, and you start leading. The weekly review is not journaling, nor overthinking, and not just another to-do item. It is 30 minutes where you become the CEO of your practice again, instead of the firefighter. 2. Build a weekly rhythm. Choose one consistent day and one consistent time. Friday afternoon works extremely well because it helps you mentally close the clinic before the weekend begins. You do not carry open loops into Saturday. You do not spend Sunday night wondering what Monday will look like. You have already made those decisions. Your brain does not relax because work disappears. It relaxes because work has been safely organized. That is exactly what the weekly review accomplishes. 3. What happens during the review? Keep it simple. Ask yourself what worked, what broke, whether your notes are current, whether your marketing block actually happened, and why it did or did not happen. Ask what needs to be delegated, what needs a better system, what deserves a protected block next week, what your active projects are, and what Monday's frog will be. That's enough. You do not need an elaborate dashboard. You need a repeatable rhythm. 4. Watch the right numbers. As your clinic grows, you will naturally start paying attention to a few basic metrics, not dozens, just enough to help you notice patterns before they become problems. Things like new patients, leads, kept appointments, reactivations, notes requests, collections, same-day note completion, and marketing consistency. Metrics are not there to judge you, they are there to inform you. Numbers remove guessing. They tell you where to look. 5. Take back the steering wheel. Dr. Alex does not feel overwhelmed because he is a bad doctor. He feels overwhelmed because for too long the clinic has been driving him. Every interruption changed his direction. Every urgent issue determined his priorities. Every week started from scratch. The weekly review changes that. It is the moment you stop drifting and start steering again. Your calendar is the steering wheel, and your weekly review is the moment you put both hands back on it. Successful clinic owners are not the ones who never face interruptions. They are the ones who consistently return to the system after the interruptions are over. Part 6. Protect your attention. Why good calendars still fail. Up to this point, we have built something important. We created clarity. We organized the work. We gave the most important work a place to live. We put it on the calendar, and we started thinking like leaders instead of responders. But there is still one thing that can quietly wreck the whole system: distraction. And I do not just mean your phone. I mean anything that steals your attention before you finish what you intended to do. A well-built calendar can still fail if the environment around that calendar is chaotic. I see this all the time. A doctor creates a protected notes block, schedules a marketing block, adds a weekly review. On paper, it looks great, but the blocks still do not work. Why? Because the calendar was protected, but the attention was not. The phone buzzes. Email stays open. The front desk interrupts with a question that feels urgent, but is not. Text messages come in. Browser tabs stay open. Unfinished tasks compete for mental space. So now the doctor is technically inside a protected block, but mentally in 5 places at once. That is not a time problem. That is an attention problem. A cognitive bandwidth problem. And if your bandwidth keeps getting split, your best plans will still underperform. Protect your attention like you protect patient care. Think about how you treat patient care. You do not stop halfway through an adjustment to answer 3 emails. You do not leave the room every 2 minutes because someone has a routine scheduling question. Why? Because that interaction deserves your full presence. Your protected work blocks deserve that same respect. You are not simply protecting 30 minutes on the calendar. You are protecting the quality of thought that can happen inside those 30 minutes. That is a huge difference, because 30 minutes of focused attention will almost always outperform an hour of fragmented attention. Shallow attention feels busy. Deep attention creates progress. Every protected block needs rules. This is why every protected block needs boundaries, not vague intentions, actual rules. During your notes block, the phone goes away, email stays closed, routine questions wait, non-urgent items get collected instead of interrupting you one at a time. During your marketing block, you are not scrolling for inspiration. You are executing a plan you already decided during your weekly review. If the plan is one educational video, that is the win. If the plan is reviewing follow-up opportunities, that is the win. One block, one objective, one category of thinking. Confusion invites distraction, and distraction loves unmade decisions. Why multitasking feels so draining? Most people say they are multitasking. They are not. They are task switching. And task switching is expensive. Every time your attention shifts, your brain pays a restart cost. You have to stop, remember where you were, reconstruct the context, and begin again. One interruption does not seem like much, but stack those across a full day and suddenly you understand why people say, "I worked all day, but I do not feel like I finished anything." You probably did work all day. You just kept spending your energy restarting. That is why distraction does not only steal time, it steals momentum. Clarity and confidence decide before the day begins. So what do? You decide before the interruption shows up. What counts as a real interruption during notes time? What can wait 20 minutes? Where does your phone live during deep work? Which tabs stay closed? What does your team do with non-urgent questions? These sound like small decisions, but small decisions remove enormous friction. And friction matters, because when the environment is sloppy, discipline has to work overtime. But when the environment is well designed, discipline gets support. So remember this line: protected blocks without protected attention are just good intentions. And good intentions do not produce finished notes, consistent marketing, or a calmer mind. Protected attention does. Part 7, Staff Support. Stop being the bottleneck. Now let's talk about leverage. Because this is where many solo doctors stay stuck far longer than they need to. A lot of clinic owners assume their team cannot really help with systems, marketing, or execution unless they hire someone highly experienced. Usually that is not the main problem. The main problem is role confusion. Your team member does not need to become the strategist, the doctor, or the marketing director. They need to become an excellent operator. That is the shift. Think like an airline when you board an airplane. The pilot is not loading luggage, checking boarding passes, serving drinks, or printing tickets. Not because the pilot is above those tasks, but because the airplane works best when each person operates in the right role. The pilot flies the plane, everyone else supports the mission. Your clinic is no different. The doctor should not become the bottleneck simply because the doctor is capable of doing almost everything. Capability is not the same as highest value. That is an important leadership distinction. Your value is not proven by how many tasks you can personally touch. Your value is proven by whether the clinic gets stronger, clearer, and more effective because of how you lead. Strategy versus operations. The doctor owns the work that requires clinical authority, judgment, and leadership. That includes patient care, the message, education, major decisions, relationship trust, final approvals, and strategic direction. The operator owns the work that creates order around those decisions. Preparation, coordination, organization, tracking, follow-through, information gathering, protecting the doctor's attention, helping the day run with less friction. Those are not lesser tasks. They are valuable tasks. They simply do not require a chiropractic license. And if the doctor keeps doing work that does not require the doctor, the clinic stays unnecessarily heavy. What one team member can really do, a strong front desk team member can do quite a lot. They can confirm appointments, handle routine reschedules, organize paperwork, build reactivation lists, flag inactive patients, prepare tomorrow's schedule, track review requests, prepare callback lists, organize referral opportunities, batch non-urgent questions, and surface only the items that truly require your judgment. Notice the pattern. They prepare, you decide. They organize, you approve. They gather, you lead. That is leverage. And leverage is what allows a small clinic to feel lighter without becoming sloppy. The most expensive sentence in small business: there is one sentence that quietly keeps many owners trapped. It's faster if I just do it myself. Sometimes that is true today. But today is not the real question. The real question is whether it will still be faster the 50th time, or the 100th, or the next 200 times this year. Every time you avoid creating a repeatable process because doing it yourself feels quicker in the moment, you are making a hidden decision. You are deciding to keep repeating that task yourself. Systems feel slower the first time. Training feels slower the first few times. Delegation feels slower at first, but afterward they create capacity. And capacity changes everything. Busy means you are carrying more. Capacity means the clinic is carrying more without crushing you. Back to Dr. Alex. Before leaving each afternoon, Dr. Alex's team member prepares tomorrow. Review request candidates, reactivation opportunities, schedule flags, outstanding callbacks, referral opportunities, questions that actually require the doctor's input. Now watch what changes. The next morning, Dr. Alex does not begin by hunting for what matters. He begins by making decisions from a prepared list. That means the first energy of the day goes to judgment, not scavenging. The team member is not replacing the doctor. They are multiplying the doctor's effectiveness. That is what a great operator does. Part 8. What this looks like in a real week. We have talked about principles. Now let's make them visible. Because a system only becomes useful when you can picture yourself actually living inside it. This is not the only schedule that works. It is simply a realistic example of what a week might look like for a solo doctor with one team member who wants to run the clinic with more clarity, consistency, and peace. Do not copy it exactly. Adapt it. Use it as a model, not a prison. Monday. Create momentum. Monday begins with a short team huddle. Not a long meeting, just a focused reset. What is different today? Any schedule concerns? Any patient situations we need to know about? Is there anything tomorrow that needs to be prepared today? That small huddle creates alignment, and alignment saves time later. Lunch includes a protected notes block. Notice the wording, not if there's time, because there is time. You already gave it a home. Before leaving, close today's loops. Finish remaining notes, look ahead at tomorrow, identify tomorrow's frog, capture anything still open. The goal is not a perfect Monday. The goal is to make sure Monday does not become Monday night. Tuesday, build tomorrow's clinic. Tuesday morning is your marketing block. Whenever possible, I prefer doing this before a full day of patient care. Why? Because marketing requires thought, not scraps. And because marketing is not separate from patient care, it is future patient care. It is the person who finds your clinic because you answered the question they were already asking. Inside that block, keep it simple. Answer one patient question. Record one educational video. Write and schedule another email for your drip campaign or let AI write it. Review follow-up opportunities to lawyers and medical doctors. Touch one referral relationship. Move one asset forward. You do not need to conquer the internet in one morning. You need to be consistent enough that trust compounds. Meanwhile, your team member has already prepared the supporting lists. The doctor provides judgment. The operator provides preparation. That is how marketing becomes steady instead of emotional. Wednesday, Protect Stability Wednesday, is often the rhythm day. Not flashy, just stable. Patient care remains the focus. Notes still have a protected home. The team keeps the clinic moving. You keep the day from becoming reactive. And if extra space appears, use it intentionally. Improve one small system. Refine one workflow. Clarify one script. Solve one recurring annoyance. Have one conversation you have been postponing. Small improvements repeated every week become major improvements over a year. Most clinics do not drift because of one giant disaster. They drift because nobody keeps tightening the small things. Thursday, Follow-Through Thursday, is a strong follow-through day. Review leads. Approve reactivation messages. Check referral relationships. Look at unfinished follow-up. Clear decision items that the team surface for you. The doctor should not be building the list from scratch. The list should already exist. The doctor's job is high-value decisions, not hunting for information that someone else could have organized. That shift alone can make a doctor feel dramatically less behind, because disorganization creates emotional heaviness. Prepared information creates movement. Friday, close the clinic before you leave. Friday still includes your notes block, but it also includes something even more important, your weekly review. This is where next week begins before next week arrives. This is where protected blocks get scheduled. Monday's frog gets chosen, open loops get captured, projects get updated, and the calendar gets prepared. And then, once that is done, something powerful becomes possible. You mentally close the clinic, not just lock the door, not just turn off the lights, actually close it. Close enough loops that your brain stops rehearsing work all weekend, because that is the real destination of this class. Not perfect notes, not perfect marketing, not perfect systems. The destination is walking through your front door and feeling like you actually arrived. Present at dinner, present with your spouse, present with your kids, present in worship, present in rest, present in the life your clinic was supposed to support, not consume. That is what a good operating system gives back to you, not merely productivity, presence. Part 9. Optional support tools, helpful but never the foundation. Before we finish, I want to mention a few support tools that I personally like. Notice the phrase, support tools, not foundations, because it is very easy to believe the next app, planner, template, or productivity trick is finally going to fix everything. It will not. If your operating system is weak, a better app will not rescue it. If your calendar has no protected blocks, a different calendar will not fix that. If your priorities are unclear, no checklist will magically create clarity. Tools can be useful, but they work best when they sit on top of something solid. And the solid part is still the same 4 ideas we have been building the entire class. Clarity, container, calendar, and control. Once those are in place, support tools can genuinely help. First, the 3-3-3 method. This is one of my favorite tools for overwhelming weeks. Choose 1 meaningful growth task, 3 smaller urgent tasks, and 3 maintenance tasks. That is it. Instead of trying to conquer everything, you create a realistic target for the day, because overwhelm often comes from one false belief that a good day means doing everything. It does not. A good day usually means doing the right things with enough clarity that your mind can stop spinning. Sometimes the solution is not doing less. It is defining what enough looks like. Second, Pomodoro. You may have probably heard of the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of focus work followed by a short 5-minute break. Repeat that a few times, then take a longer 15 to 20-minute break. Make it fit the time block you have, simple but effective, especially when resistance is the real problem. If you have been avoiding notes, follow-up calls, or content creation, do not start by promising to finish everything. Start by promising 25 focused minutes. Because most of the time, the hardest part is not the work, it is starting. The last tool is often called the Seinfeld strategy. Don't break the consistency, do the habit. Mark the day, build the streak. Try not to miss 2 days in a row. This works especially well for same-day notes, a 5-minute end-of-day shutdown, weekly marketing, weekly review time, writing, podcast prep, and consistent content production. The goal is not perfection. The goal is rhythm. You can't write a book or this class in 1 day. Follow Pomodoro 2 cycles in your off time every day, or at least not skipping 2 days in a row. Eventually, your book or project will finally be complete. These tools are not replacing your operating system. They are simply helping you stay consistent while your operating system does its job. Part 10. Why this actually works. Let's zoom out. I do not want you leaving this class thinking you just learned a better scheduling method. You learned something deeper. Most overwhelmed clinic owners assume they have an effort problem, so they respond with more effort, longer hours, more multitasking, more work carried into evenings and weekends. But effort was never the main issue, structure was. Most solo doctors are trying to manage 3 different kinds of work at the same time: patient care, maintenance, growth. None of those are optional. But when they do not have clear boundaries, they start colliding with each other. Patient care crowds out notes, notes crowd out marketing, admin spills into home life, and before long, everything feels urgent because nothing has a clear place to go. That is exhausting. This system works because it solves that problem. It tells you what matters, where it belongs, and when it gets done. And when the week gets disrupted, because it will, you still have a way to recover without feeling like everything is falling apart. That is why this works. Not because it removes work, because it removes mental drag. Think about how many times your brain repeats the same unfinished thoughts. When am I going to finish my notes? I need to follow up with that patient. I still have to work on marketing. I cannot forget that insurance issue. Those thoughts keep coming back because your brain does not fully trust there is a system. So it keeps reminding you. That repetition is draining. But when your brain starts to trust the structure, those loops get quieter. And that is one of the biggest gifts of all of this. You are not just organizing work. You are reducing the weight of unfinished thinking. That is what this system is built to relieve. Part 11, the real goal. Now I want to end where this really matters. Because if this class only helped you finish notes faster or become more consistent with marketing, that would be good. But that is not the deepest win. The real goal is not productivity. The real goal is presence. After a hard day, you drive home, you walk through the front door. The people you love are there, but mentally, you are still at the clinic, still thinking about a patient, still replaying what you forgot, still carrying tomorrow into tonight. Your body made it home, your attention did not. Almost every clinic owner knows that feeling. And over time, that cost is bigger than inefficiency. It costs peace, relationships, and your ability to be fully present in the life you are working so hard to build. That is why this matters. This is not just about getting more done. It is about creating enough structure that your clinic stops borrowing from the rest of your life. You are not protecting notes because notes are exciting. You are protecting notes because unfinished work follows you home. And a good operating system helps you leave more of that work where it belongs. It creates space to think, rest, pray, and to be present with the people you love. Presence is not something you stumble into. Presence is something your systems make possible. Final thoughts: if I could summarize this entire masterclass in one sentence, it would be this. The solo doctor does not need more hustle. He needs a better operating system. One that creates clarity, one that gives work a place, one that protects what belongs on the calendar, and one that helps you make wise decisions when the week gets messy. Think about Dr. Alex one last time. He is still busy, still seeing patients, still dealing with interruptions, still carrying real responsibility. But now his week has structure. Notes have a home. Marketing has a home. His team understands their role. And when he leaves the clinic, he has a much better chance of actually leaving the clinic. That is the win. Not perfection, not becoming a productivity machine. The win is building a clinic with enough structure that you can care for patients, grow the practice, and still have something left for the people who matter most. So do not try to implement everything tomorrow. Start with 3 things. Schedule 1 daily notes block. Schedule 1 weekly marketing block. Schedule 1 weekly review. Protect those 3 commitments for the next 4 weeks. Then watch what changes. And I do not think the biggest change will show up in your calendar. I think it will show up at home. Same doctor, same clinic, same number of hours. Different system, and that changes everything. Presence is built before you leave the clinic. The systems you build during your workday shape the person who walks through your front door at the end of it. Build the right system, and presence becomes possible. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm Dr. Justin Trosclair, and I truly hope this masterclass has given you a practical operating system to help you build a clinic that supports your life instead of consuming it. If you would like to keep learning, I have written 2 books that connect closely with what we covered today. The first is Balanced Success Journal, a daily reflection and planning journal for balance, productivity, and personal growth. It is designed to help you put the planning, reflection, and weekly review principles from this masterclass into daily practice. The second is Outside the Clinic, Doctor Insights on Building a Resilient, Enduring Partnership. That book grew out of more than 175 interviews from a Doctor's Perspective podcast and focuses on protecting your most important relationships while building a demanding career. Because success inside the clinic means very little if it costs you everything outside of it. Both books are available on Amazon. If you go to the resources page for this class on adoctorsperspective.net, then you can download the worksheets that complement this program. And if this masterclass helped you, I would genuinely love to hear how you are putting these ideas into practice. If you have questions, feedback, or simply want to share what is working in your clinic, please feel free to reach out at doctorsperspective@gmail.com. Thank you again for trusting me with your time. I wish you continued success in your practice, peace in your home, and the wisdom to build a business that supports the life you are trying to live. Because at the end of the day, the goal is not simply to run a better clinic. The goal is to build a better life. Thank you, and I will see you next time.